Stay still, don't even breathe. The cowboy's voice was calm, steady, and terrifying all at once. The millionaire woman froze, her eyes wide, her heart pounding so loud she could barely hear anything else. A desert wind brushed her hair, but the cowboy wasn't looking at her face, he was staring at something near her boots. Something alive. Something only 20 centimeters from her leg. And in that moment, she realized the one thing money had never been able to buy, someone willing to risk himself for her. Before we begin, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment below. It helps this channel, Kindness Journey, reach more hearts and spread more good in the world. Now, let's start the story. It all began on a dusty highway somewhere between Texas and New Mexico, where the sun fell heavy on everything it touched. Claire Dalton, billionaire, business mogul, known for her sharp mind and even sharper schedule, wasn't used to being stranded on the side of a road. But her private jet couldn't land near the small town she was visiting to close a land deal, so she rented a car. And that car, much like her patience, overheated halfway to nowhere. She stood outside the vehicle, tapping her phone screen over and over, desperate for a signal. Nothing. Just open desert and the sound of her frustration echoing in the empty air. Then she heard the approaching rumble of a truck, a big, old, beat-up pickup with rust along its sides and a cowboy hat visible behind the windshield. She stiffened. Claire didn't usually trust strangers, much less ones who looked like they rode bulls for a living. But she needed help, and fate doesn't always give options. The truck rolled to a stop, dust swirling around it. "Trouble?" the cowboy asked, leaning out the window. He had kind eyes, sun-warmed skin, and a voice that sounded like he'd spent years talking to the horizon. "My car's overheated," she replied, trying to sound calm. "Do you know anything about engines?" He smiled a little. "Ma'am, out here, everyone knows a little about everything." He got out, walked to her rental car, and started tinkering under the hood. He didn't brag. Didn't try to impress. He just worked, quiet, focused, considerate. Claire watched him, strangely moved by the simplicity of his kindness. In her world, kindness usually came with contracts or conditions. After a while, he said, "You'll be good to go in 10 minutes once it cools down." Then he added, "Why don't you stretch your legs? Sun's nice today." Claire nodded, stepping away from the car and onto the warm desert earth. The place looked calm, peaceful, almost like the world had paused. That's when it happened. She took one slow step, then another, and then. "Stay still," the cowboy suddenly shouted. His voice cut through the air like a whip. Claire's entire body locked. Her breath froze. "Don't move, ma'am," he said again, quieter this time, as if talking to a frightened horse. Her eyes searched his face, confused, until she saw where he was looking. A long, dark shape sat coiled beside her right boot. A rattlesnake. Silent. Watching. 20 centimeters away. Claire's heart slammed against her ribs. Her throat tightened, and a dizzy wave of fear crashed through her. She had flown private jets, managed billion-dollar deals, stared down hardened executives, but she had never faced death that close. The cowboy's voice stayed calm. "I'm gonna help you. Just trust me." Trust. A word she didn't use often. He took a slow step toward her, then another. The snake lifted its head slightly, tongue flicking, sensing motion. Claire wanted to scream but couldn't get sound past the fear squeezing her lungs. "Look at me," the cowboy said softly. "Just at me. Not at the snake." She focused on his steady eyes, warm brown, grounding, safe. "That's it," he whispered. "You're doing real good." He reached down, so slowly she barely noticed at first, grabbing a long branch from the ground. He moved like time itself had slowed. Claire didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Her entire world shrank to the cowboy, the snake, and the beating of her terrified heart. Then, with a quick flick, gentle but deliberate, he nudged the snake's tail. The creature turned, rattled once, and slid away into the brush, disappearing as silently as it had appeared. Claire gasped, stumbling back. Her knees went weak, and she grabbed onto the cowboy's arm without thinking. He steadied her with both hands, his voice soft. "You're okay. It's gone." For a moment, she didn't feel like a millionaire or a CEO. She felt like a human being who had been given a second chance. "Thank you," she whispered, tears gathering unexpectedly. You saved me." He shrugged gently. "Wouldn't call it saving. Just doing what's right." But to her, it was so much more. They sat on the edge of his truck as her hands still trembled slightly. Claire found herself talking, really talking, for the first time in years. She told him about her life, the pressure, the loneliness, the weight of every expectation. In return, he told her about the ranch he ran with his brother, and how kindness was something his dad taught him early. "You help folks because one day you'll need help too," he said simply. "Kindness keeps the world balanced." Claire had lived her life believing power kept the world balanced. Deals, influence, strategy. But this man, this stranger, had shattered that idea in one act. As her car cooled and the sun began to lower, she realized something else. She didn't even know his name. "It's Colt," he said when she finally asked. "Colt McCarthy." "Well, Colt," she replied with a small smile, "I won't forget this." He tipped his hat. "Most people do forget kindness. I hope you don't." She didn't drive off immediately. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a small business card. "If you ever need anything," she said, "call me. I mean it." He looked at the card but didn't reach for it. "Ma'am, kindness isn't a transaction. I don't help folks for favors." Claire lowered the card, feeling something inside her shift. For once, she didn't feel like a woman defined by her wealth. She just felt grateful. "Then at least let me say thank you properly," she said. "By paying it forward." Colt smiled. "Now that's something I can get behind." And she did. The next week, Claire donated a large sum, not publicly, not with cameras, but quietly, anonymously, to fund medical services for rural communities just like Colt's. She started holding her employees to new standards of kindness, not just productivity. And every time she felt impatient, angry, or overwhelmed, she remembered a cowboy's calm voice whispering, "Look at me, you're doing real good." She even returned to that dusty road one day, bringing supplies for ranchers hit by drought. Colt wasn't there, but she didn't need him to be. The lesson had already settled into her spirit. Kindness isn't about who has more. It's about who gives more of themselves. Claire became known, not for her money, but for her compassion. For her willingness to listen, to help, to step into someone else's fear and say, "I'm here." And somewhere out in the desert, Colt probably tipped his hat and smiled, knowing that one moment of kindness had rippled into many. In the end, Claire realized something simple but powerful. Kindness is the one thing that grows only when you share it. And maybe that's why the cowboy's voice still echoed in her heart, calm, steady, and full of quiet strength. Because sometimes, all it takes is one kind person to change the direction of someone's life, even if that change begins with a rattlesnake 20 centimeters from your leg. And so, wherever you are tonight, remember this. The world becomes safer, softer, and more beautiful every time we choose kindness. Now go out there, and pass it on.